the Lord is not trying to punish you. You know, if you are feeling lonely right now, if you're feeling isolated and just longing for this companionship, the Lord is not trying to deprive you. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dami and I am a faith-based content creator. And if you've never seen my face before, you know, you're new to the channel, then welcome to the family. But to share a bit about myself and what this platform is, this is just a space where we just keep it real. Cause y'all, whether you are a woman of God, if you're in college like me, or wherever God has you right now, I know it is not easy. So this platform is just a space where we can just strengthen each other, encourage each other, you know, and just grow together in our walk with the Lord. So again, I'm so happy you're here, and y'all, I'm excited for this word and, you know, the topic we're going to be talking about today, because singleness is so demonized these days. And y'all, I used to fall into the same mentality and the same lies of just thinking that this was not truly the gift that it is that the Lord has given me. So we're going to unpack that today. And I really do pray that you get some encouragement, you know, from this video, that you're able to go forward in your single season, in your journey, with a different perspective and understanding that the Lord is not trying to punish you. You know, if you are feeling lonely right now, if you're feeling isolated and just longing for this companionship, the Lord is not trying to deprive you. You know, He's doing a work in you and He's using this time intentionally for a purpose. So I just wanted to start this video off with a little girl chat, you know, me just telling y'all what my story has been like and how I've honestly gotten to this place of true contentment where, like, even though I have those desires for a relationship, it's not from the same place of like deep longing to where I feel incomplete. You know, I can't be in my own company right now kind of thing. So yeah, just to kind of give y'all some context, I have always had somebody around, romantically at least. I always like struggled with, you know, commitment issues. So it was never really like relationships, but I've always had somebody in the background, and that was kind of my life for a very, very long time. So going all the way back to middle school, and for those of y'all who don't know, I'm actually in college right now. I'm in my third year at UGA, go dogs. But yeah, we're going to take it back a little bit. So during that time, I was questioning literally everything about myself. You know, in the midst of me wanting this companionship, y'all, I was even questioning, like, who do I want this with? And I say that because I struggled with homosexuality for a very long time. And that really was rooted and began in middle school for me. So yeah, in middle school, I kind of danced around with, you know, a few relationships, nothing serious, just like those superficial kind of relationships. But then fast forward to high school, by this time I had like embraced this identity of just simply pursuing women. And I think it was deeper than just an attraction alone. Yes, like I was like way more attracted to women than I was men, and solely at that time. But it was also like I had daddy issues. I had just so many things that I was battling at that time that made it very easy to try to like find comfort in this sense of identity and, you know, this seeking of someone that could fill those voids for me in a romantic way. But yeah, like all throughout high school, I was only interested in women. Like I said, I never really had those commitment type relationships until like my senior year. I ended up getting in a relationship with a woman, with a girl for a very long time, until college. And I just kind of like called things quits just because I kind of knew who I was. I knew I really needed to spend this time alone. And I always felt this like underlying tension within our relationship anyway. So I just thought it was wise to just kind of let that go. And I did, with the intention to just focus on myself. I told myself, like, I'm going to get in my, you know, in my bag. I'm going to be just this independent boss kind of girl. And, you know, not necessarily focused on the Lord, but just, you know, making myself a better me. And even though I was technically still doing things wrong at that time, you know, I had the right intentions to do better. It was outside of God. That still didn't even stick, because then before I knew it, I was attracted to somebody else, got in this whole thing with this person, wasn't even a relationship, before I finally surrendered everything to God. Because at that point I just hit rock bottom and I was like, I can't keep doing this, Lord. I know I'm not supposed to be in this. I can't let this person go. Clearly there's something, like there's some sort of comfort here that is just keeping me sane, or so I thought. And there's just this comfort that I can't let go. But, you know, I hit rock bottom and I was like, nah, God, you got it. Like, I know you don't want me in this relationship, but at this point you got it. I'm done. But guys, I'm not even gonna downplay how long that took me to get to that point of surrender, of like true surrender, where I finally let this person go. Because it wasn't only that God didn't want me with this person. He needed me alone. Like, girl, you gotta heal. And like, before you can feel this desire for other people, for companionship in this way, I have to do some work in you. And I just could not, you know, embrace that. I just was so rebellious and just didn't want to accept the fact that God was trying to get me single. He tried to get me alone. I saw it as a punishment, and I just was not going for it for a very long time, until I absolutely had no other options. I went to the ends of myself with this person. I drained all that I was with myself, with this person. And I hate that that's how like God had to finally get me out of that. But I was just so rebellious, and I was so scared, not only just like rebellious, but genuinely scared to be alone. But y'all, here I am before you as a woman who loves her company, who loves her space. I never thought, y'all, in a million gazillion years, I never thought I'd get to this place where I could genuinely crave my company. I love my intimate times with God. You know, I love my solitude, but it was by the grace, the true grace of God, that I am where I am. So if you are also someone who is struggling, whether you're in a relationship that you don't necessarily know how to let go of, you know, that the Lord may be trying to call you out of, if you're in a single season right now and you know you're struggling with finding true peace and just where the Lord has you right now, or if you're feeling bored and you know you just don't feel content with being by yourself, I have a beautiful, beautiful word of encouragement for you today, because I'm telling you, if God can do this for me, of getting me to this place of true contentment, He can do it for you as well. So first, let's talk about what could be at the root of why you feel so uncomfortable in your single season right now. And y'all, what it honestly boils down to is very simple. It's the fact that God is not truly your foundation. Y'all, when I was deep in that lifestyle of always needing somebody around, you know, even when it wasn't romantic partners, it was friends. If it wasn't friends, it was always something to fill this void that, you know, of emptiness that I had within me. It could be a show. It was food. It was so many different sources of comfort that I was trying to find in every and anything except for God. And honestly, I think it was for a number of reasons why I struggled so bad with that. But one being the fact that I thought that having this relationship or this deep surrender to God would be boring. Let's be honest. A big part of being in a relationship, according to worldly terms, is, you know, the ability to have that element of lust, you know, being able to kiss on them, you know, have those barriers that y'all cross that you're not supposed to be doing, you know, as a child of God. But that was a big thing for me. You know, I didn't want to give up the lust part. And I knew that, you know, with going back to God or like surrendering this part to God, I would be giving that up. I wouldn't be able to like have somebody who I can do these things with or experience this anymore. So yeah, you know, I didn't want to be bored. I didn't want to let that go. But another part of it was, you know, a lack of trust in the Lord, that He could really fill this void, you know, that He could provide in due time the person that I needed. But bottom line, I just didn't have this depth to my relationship with God. You know, I knew of God, but I didn't really know about Him. I didn't have this love, this just burning desire to just be His daughter. I didn't have any of that. So of course it didn't seem like a good enough trade-off, you know, to surrender so much of my time and effort and energy trying to go deeper with this relationship with God, when there was something more tangible that I could chase after. I didn't trust that He could, you know, be good enough for me. I didn't trust that He could give me what I needed. And you know, what I would have to let go, it just wasn't worth it. But like I shared, y'all, the Lord literally had to pry the last relationship I was in or person I was with, you know, out of my hands, because I just would not let it go. But He had to do that in order to truly place Himself as the foundation of my life, you know, where I had no other option. I didn't have anybody else to turn to, even friends at one point. You know, all I had was Him. So is that maybe the same for you in your life right now? You know, do you have things that you're idolizing or that you're giving more energy, more commitment, more time to than the Lord Himself? Is He finally trying to make Himself the true love of your life, you know, where He is your number one and nothing, I mean, absolutely nothing is above Him? Because what I think we don't realize sometimes is anything that we have in this world, you know, whether it's our relationships, you know, whatever God has blessed us with is supposed to be a reflection of what we have at core with Him. So when we have that relationship with friends, for instance, it's not that we're supposed to place this relationship above God, you know, where we start spending more time and energy with this friend than we do with God. God has allowed us to experience that type of relationship, you know, such genuineness of friendship as a way to truly reflect His love. So, you know, when it comes back to romantic relationships, it's not that we're going to idolize this husband, you know, or this boyfriend that we eventually get, you know, that the Lord sends to us. God will bring this person in our life, you know, as He does with friends, to reflect the love that He has for us, you know, the love that we're supposed to have in this relationship with Him. So with that being said, there's some work to do. You know, you first have to recognize where you're idolizing things, you know, things that aren't meant to be that depth of love that you have with the Lord. Because if that's the case, you're going to keep looking and searching for what you're supposed to have with God in other things, in other people. And it's not just, you know, singleness, or it's not just relationships where you'll search for this. It'll also be in food. It'll also be in lust. It'll also be in pornography. It'll also be in friendships and work and every other thing that the devil can use to distract us, you know, to keep us from actually experiencing this depth that we have to have with the Lord. But maybe relationships is the biggest place where you're trying to fill that void that truly only God can fill, you know, but surrender that to Him. He knows these desires. He knows what we want, but, you know, He also knows what is best for us. And that is truly His love. So, you know, it's going to take some time to find find true contentment with the Lord himself, especially when you're so used to filling voids with so many other things. You know, for me, it was food. Along with people, it was food for a very long time, and still kind of is. You know, I still have this comfort that I get from eating, but I know it's in a different way now, where I recognize this is a gift. This is an addition to, you know, how I feel with the Lord when, you know, I do have those safe foods that I eat, when I can experience a good meal or something. So I'm no longer placing these idols above God himself, because I truly understand that there is no one except for him who can fill these voids. You know, when I used to overindulge in food because that was such a strong comfort for me, you know, I would eventually get full, and then I would still be in this place of longing. So I'm telling you, it is truly only the Lord that can fill these voids. So remember, anything that you have in this life, or anyone that the Lord brings you, will be in addition to what you fundamentally have with him. And a great way to think about this is, you know, seeing him as the source of all the love and all the comfort and all the things that you desire, and everything else is a resource, you know. So when that comes to friendships, if it comes to food, if it comes to people, quite literally anything else is a resource to what should guide you back to what you have with him. And just remember that this single season is not going to last forever, and that could be a beautiful thing. You know, you can be anticipating this next chapter of your life, but it should also urge you to take the season a little more seriously with how you're preparing for that, because you know you're not going to be here forever. But you know, once the Lord finally gives you that husband, are you going to be ready? Because while we're so focused on getting these relationships, you know, as if the Lord hasn't already promised us that he will give us the desires of our hearts. You know, if you want companionship, the Lord will give it to you in due time. So that's not what you need to be stressing about. What's more important is how you're preparing for when that time comes. You know, are you going to be the woman, the type of woman that God is calling you to be in that relationship? Because eventually you will be a wife, you know, who is submissive to a husband. And, you know, we all have these checklist boxes of the type of man we want. You know, we want him to be a God-fearing man. We want him to be fit, to look good, to do this. And that's good and all. That is a great first step to having, you know, great standards of the type of person you want to become equally yoked with. But what are you doing to prepare, you know, to become the type of woman that he could be looking for? Are you a God-fearing woman? You know, are you building those qualities of a Proverbs 31 woman, you know, where you're a prayer woman, you can keep your family together? If appearance is something that's important to you, you know, are you getting in the gym? Are you consistently working out? You know, are you eating clean? And most of all, how's your heart? How's your mind? You know, do you still have some trauma that's affecting the type of person you are right now? There's so much you could be doing with this time that the Lord is trying to work in you, that it'd be so counterintuitive to see this single season as anything less than worthy. Guys, the Lord is trying to prepare you. You know, if he has given you this desire for companionship, if it is burning, you know, as you feel it, to have this person, you know, that you want, then I promise he will fulfill those desires. You know, wouldn't you rather have it the Lord's way, where you don't have to chase? You can get this gift that is freely given to you, versus having to expend so much energy and fight for something that was never meant to be yours. So I'm telling you, life will be so much more easier if you do things the Lord's way. You know, he will give you what you want eventually, but in the meantime, he is still trying to do something so beautiful here that you don't want to overlook or miss. And the way you find contentment in that, I mean, genuine contentment in your single season, is first getting the Lord back as that foundation in your life. You know, making him your first love, getting him to be the source of all your desires, including your desires for companionship. But that is all I have for you guys, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. But I am thinking about making this an entire series, or just talking more about, you know, the single season and how to navigate it, because y'all, contentment in this season is truly a blessing. Like, once you can truly start to see your single season as a gift, I'm telling you, life gets so much more easier. And you know, when the Lord finally brings that person in your life, it will be so much more rewarding, because it was never like you were lacking. You know, it's just an addition to what you already had within you, and that's the way it should be. So yeah, that'll definitely be something in the works. But until then, I will be praying for you guys. Please know you are not alone in your struggles. Okay, I know it can get really hard, you know, trying to navigate this lonely season, but there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. And you want to get to this place where you can be alone, but you can be content because you have the Lord. But we will work through that together, because you are not alone. But I love y'all so much, and I will see y'all in the next video.